he has pneumonia, so it's David Ben Fager, but her mother-in-law is, who's having a surgery now, is Ruth Bat Minda Simmer, who's having emergency surgery now on her leg. So
I was just talking about you to somebody.
Okay. And as always, we always add Yaakov Yeshai Ben Nomi that we don't forget about. Okay. So enjoy, everybody. I'll have to catch up. But look at this.
You're still here.
It's time for all of us to pack your bags, girls, and it's time to get you.
Oh, good for you that you said it. I usually the one who says it.
Well, you know, it feels much stronger when you're actually here. You know what you're yearning for, but when you get here and you feel it, then you know that it's really here.
Right, right. Okay, so you're really doing a gigantic mitzvah of being here for your mother, and your stepfather should have really a aliyas neshama to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. It's a big, big zchus, and you know, to have a shir in his memory is a gigantic zchus, and so your mother should have a nechama. Oh, here's Carmen's getting on, and let's see. Maybe I can just say to her,
Mommy, this is Rebbetzin Silber. I'm doing the shir now. Oh, how merit of David.
For your husband, and he should have a good rewarding Gan Eden, a lichtige Gan Eden. His soul should have comfort and should have blessings, and all of the mitzvot and the good deeds that your whole family does, all of your descendants should be a merit for him also. And we're learning in his memory and in his merit, and the fact that he passed away here in Israel and that he was buried here is a huge merit for his soul. It's unbelievably gigantic. People come here. In olden days, people would come here when they were on their last legs just to leave the world from Eretz Yisrael. So the fact that he lived here and then he passed from here, he went straight up to heaven, and he's in a good place now. And he'll come back soon. Mashiach is coming any minute, and he'll come back soon.
Thank you. And I look forward to you every Thursday.
Thank you. Okay, so now you can't listen to the share. Okay. However you do it works. Hi, everybody. It's good to see you all. And I am really, really looking forward to giving you all a hug in person. Next week, I'm coming Sunday night. I'll be there Monday morning. We have 3 days straight of learning. 3 days. Let's saturate it. Let's like oversaturate with learning and sharing each other's company and getting to know each other and having, I'm not allowed, I don't know what I'm allowed to say about the activities, what I'm not allowed to say. I don't know what is secret, what's not secret, you know, whatever it is. I'm looking forward to meeting each and every one of you and having time to talk privately. Rebbetzin Dov set up a schedule, and whoever will hear this year later also, there's time to meet privately. I'm gonna ask you to bless me that I should have the strength to be able to give you my maximum in the 3 days that I'm there. Be'ezrat Hashem. I'm really, really looking forward. Okay. Well, okay, now everybody has to mute yourself if you can, please. Mrs. Lars has to mute herself. Sharon has to mute yourself.
Hello.
Yeah. Oh, no, she's in here. Okay.
I'm fine, thank you.
Hi, Mrs. Mars. Can you mute yourself? Okay. Oh, Miriam is here. I'm hoping that that's the Miriam that we have.
Actually, I worked out what had happened.
Oh, you are Miriam. Yes.
How are you, darling?
Call Mrs. Larson, tell her to mute herself. It's so funny when that happens. And Sharon also, I don't know who's talking on the phone, but whoever it is. Okay. Dahlia, can you take care? I don't know. Do you know how to take care of that? Are you like the host of the meeting or whatever? Nobody's the host here. Hi, Miriam. We missed you a lot.
I'll pop up past you this morning after I've been to you.
Let's see, maybe I can do this.
I'm on my way to somewhere else at the time. I've got a chiropodist appointment this morning.
Only because we don't want her own privacy to be breached. Okay, so
it is the cheesecake one you wanted.
Is that
the bread? That's right. Well, I've got that printed out already. That's lovely. Okay.
Pat, yeah. We don't know how to do that because Joanne, the mute,
The host is able to mute everybody automatically.
what?
The host should mute everyone.
That's right, but the host is, I don't know, who's the host? I'm not the host.
It says Joanne Admin is the host.
So Joanne is actually,
It's usually Dahlia.
no,
Or
because
Yeah.
Joanne is here in Eretz Israel. Can somebody, okay, let me talk to Joanne. She's not gonna necessarily listen, but, no, 1 second.
Anybody could sign in as a host.
You
No.
need a special
Yeah.
code number.
Do you want me to text?
Oh, I
You
see.
carry on.
Please, yeah, please
I'll
text.
text her, you carry on.
Thank you, I'll carry on. That's a British
I'm
expression.
now muting myself till
Okay.
Monday morning, and then I'll be fully unmuted.
Okay, okay, so we're in Perek Nun Hey, is that correct? Yeah, 55? We are? Hello, anybody? That's where I have my my bookmark. So we're in Perek Nun Hey, 55. Carmen, I have to thank you. Are you the one who sent me the list that Joanne forwarded of all the prakim that we did? Is that you? I got a whole list of a lot of numbers, and I'm assuming that that's the that those are the prakim that we did. So if that's what you sent, that's amazing. Thank you. And I see how much we learned. We really learned a lot. Okay, I'm gonna ask you to look in the for those of you who are looking inside, look in the Mrs. Morris, can you? She muted herself. Good. Now Malka, whoever's Malka, you have to mute yourself. And who else was before? And whoever's on the phone has to be very quiet because
What Perek are we?
Nun Hey,
Thank you.
55. Okay. Now we're in Pasuk Yud Beis, and right, and I want you to look at that word for those of you who read Hebrew, because this is a word that's mistranslated, mispronounced many times. So look at, if you want to read it correctly, look at Nun Hey and look at Pasuk Yud Bet, chapter 55, verse 12. Okay, it's an unusual word. Malka, could you please mute yourself, sweetie? It's an unusual word. And the way we read it now, you might not know how to read that because look at it, Hey, Vav, Vav, Tav. And in the first Vav, there's a dot. And in the second Vav, there's an O sound. So how do you read that? So the way you read it is that the first Vav is the Vav sound. And the dot in the middle is not, it doesn't change anything. And the vowelization is from the second Vav. So you read that word, havot, as if there was a hey, bet, vav, tav, but it's not a bet, it's a vav. So the vet and the vav have the same sound. So hey, vav, tav, you read havot. Now remember that we're talking about the craziness of the world and that David HaMelech is saying how scary it is to live in a world where everything is dangerous and there's anti-Semitism and there's all kinds of, war games going on and preparations for war. And he himself had in his own life, that his own son, Avshalom, his very beloved son, very righteous son, but he did a mistake. The righteous son did a mistake. And he rebelled against his own father. And not just that he rebelled against his own father, but David's own rabbis, two of his confidants, two of his own people who he trusted, they also joined in the rebellion against David. Now, I'm going to tell you, ladies, that David HaMelech was not he was not what you would call, the mainstream, politically correct, perfect, looking person. He was an unusual neshama. And because he was an unusual neshama and he was Mashiach, He was a Melech. He was Melech Mashiach. And his soul is going to come back again in the upcoming Mashiach. But he wasn't what people expected. Who was what people expected in terms of Jewish history? When Shaul was crowned king, Shaul was the first king, and he was a Mashiach ben Yosef king. He was from the line of Yosef HaTzadik. When he was crowned king, everybody was very happy. The Jews were very happy. Why? He was very tall and very good looking and he had a charming personality. He didn't have an enemy in the world. He was perfectly righteous. He looked the part and he played the parts and he was a tzaddik, but he wasn't Hashem's chosen one. David, who was Hashem, who was and is Hashem's permanent chosen one, didn't look the part at all. He was not tall and stately. He was much more amami, and that's how we say it in Hebrew, like, how do I describe him? The Chazal say that he was muscular and he had a red beard and a red hair and a red face and multicolored eyes. And he didn't, when he was king, I guess he dressed the part, but as a private citizen, he didn't dress yeshivish or politically correct at all. But his neshama was completely aligned with God. So he knew what the Ratzon Hashem was at all times. And not just that, but the Ratzon Hashem, even though righteous people, we all consider ourselves righteous and good people, the Ratzon Hashem is sometimes tricky for even righteous people to be able to do. For example, I'll give you an example. Let's say Rav Edelstein, who just passed away, the Rosh Hashanah of Panovich. So they say about him that he took literally the words of the Mishnah. And what did he eat? He lived a very long life. He lived to 100. What did he used to eat every single day? Sarah, please mute yourself. Thank you. Sharon, please mute yourself if you can. Sharon Brand, if you could please mute yourself, or else don't make any noise because you're also not muted. So Rav Edelstein, he used to eat bread and water. That was what he ate all week long. Shabbos, I don't know what he ate on Shabbos, but during the week, he did what the Mishnah says. Pas v'melach tochel, u'bai mayim m'surat yishta, bread and water. He lived till age 100, and he gave a shear a few hours before he passed, and then he just put his head down and passed. It was time for him to go. But that's hard for us to hear. Could you imagine if Melech HaMashiach would come today and he would tell us to do avodas Hashem that we're not on the level to do? It would be hard for us. So David HaMelech was one of those, his lifestyle was so elevated that people had a really hard time relating to him. For example, the Gemara says he did not go to sleep. He never went to sleep. If he fell asleep, he would fall asleep, but he never got prepared nagelwasser and got into pajamas and fluffed up his pillows and prepared his blanket. He didn't do that. He stayed up all the time. He was always serving God. Whenever it was that his body would collapse from exhaustion, he would collapse from exhaustion. And Chazal say that he tried to never sleep. He trained his body to be able to not need more than 20 minutes sleep at a time. So how many of those little miniature power naps did he take during the day? I don't know. But that's what Chazal tell us. So we can't handle things like that. That's very hard for us. When David HaMelech would daven, he would daven with such ecstasy, as we saw that his own wife, Michal, who he loved very much, and she loved him very much. But she said to him, you have to do things in a more acceptable manner because you're the king now. You're not just my husband. You're not just a private person. You're not just sitting in, the shepherd who's in the fields singing love songs to God. You're the king. People are watching you. Don't go crazy when you're dancing in front of Hashem, that your shoes flew off and your robe flew up. And he said, no, he disagreed with her. And he said, I'm going to be a real person. I'm going to be a real person. I'm not going to adopt, the trappings of royalty and act a certain way, and not me. Anyway, so that's why it was hard for people to be, the people who were really devoted to him adored him. But the people who had a hard time with his lack of being politically correct, and also the people who had a hard time with his success, he was incredibly successful. Whatever he touched worked. He elevated the economy of Eretz Yisrael. He wiped out all the enemies of Eretz Yisrael. For 40 years of his kingship, and for the 40 years afterwards of Shlomo's kingship, the land of Israel was the most, and the people of Israel were the most prosperous, the happiest, the most successful, and the most world famous ever in our entire history. He did that. People were jealous of that. People had a hard time with that. And so that's why his son rebelled against him, and that's why a lot of his people rebelled against him. So that's why that's the root of this very, very painful Tehillim. But we're going to get to the end. It's going to be good. Havot Bikir Basa. He's talking about Yerushalayim HaKodesh, and he's talking about Eretz Yisrael, and he's talking about his own palace and how there's within his own Dalet Amos, there's treachery. Havot means problems, treachery, evil, and that's why it's such an unusual word. It's only in Tehillim. That word Havot is only found in Tehillim, and the pronunciation of it is unusual. And so he's saying that there's so much evil in the world. Now we're saying that about our world today. What David Melch was seeing in his time was a fraction of what's going on today. And everyone here knows all of the crazy immorality. And every time a story breaks of another corruption that's been proven, and I think, okay, now they're going to start, getting all the evil people and taking away their power and all of that, and nothing happens. I'm talking about, in the world, in America, nothing happens. Why? Because the entire system, all the people are corrupt. If everybody is cheating, let's say you're in a business, and let's say in the business, there's the owner of the business, and then there's the accountant of the business, and then the accountant has a brother who's a lawyer, and the brother has a father-in-law who's a judge, and let's say they're all profiting from this business. And let's say they find out that the owner of the business, he lied, and then his accountant lied, and it's big, big headlines. Owner of the big business lied, the accountant lied. So you think, okay, they're going to take him to court. But guess what? Guess who's the lawyer? The brother-in-law. And guess who's the judge? The father-in-law. Even if they take him to court, they're not going to convict him. Nothing's going to happen to him. So every time they reveal another level of the 50th level of Tumah in America, and everyone says, okay, now, nothing happens. What did Hashem do now in America? So I'll tell you such an interesting, it's a very interesting thing Hashem is pointing out to us. It's very important, I think it's very important to pay attention to these signs. So the whole eastern seaboard of America is now engulfed in smog, in terrible air pollution. And all the Jewish communities, New York, New Jersey, Lakewood, Florida, all the religious communities, no one can go outside. The air is yellow. It's terrible pollution. Everyone's, going out in gas masks and, I-95 whatever those 95 masks are. And it's because there's fires in Canada. And somehow the fires in Canada, are burning so much that the ash and the air pollution from Canada is going down to the whole eastern seaboard of America. I don't know who started the fires in Canada, and I don't know what this is all about. All I do know is that what Hashem is saying to New York and to the whole eastern seaboard of America is, you're polluted. The air in the air, we're going to be learning one class I'm going to be teaching is going to be the 4 elements. The air element is the element of thought and intellect. And Hashem is saying to America, your mind is polluted, is unclean, is tamei, is impure. That's why the air is impure. Now, California, which is a source of impurity in America, has always had smog and pollution. They now have, and they also have fires, and they also have earthquakes. They have all of the elements break in California, because California is the root of all evil in America. It's the root of the liberal and all the entertainment industry, etc. So that's always been, Hashem has always been saying, look at this sky. Do you see how filthy the sky is? That's how your mind is. So your mind means the entire world, the streets of the world are constantly full of deception, fraud, corruption, immorality. This pasuk is describing our world. Now, David Melch is going back to his own life, and this is a painful part of his own life. You know what David Melch is saying to Hashem? He's saying to his enemies, he's saying, you know, the people who are making fun of me, the people who are humiliating me, the people who are rebelling against me, the heads, the masterminds of this whole revolution against King David is not people who are my official enemies. Because it's not my non-Jewish enemies that are rebelling against me. If that were true, then it would be like a regular war, and I'm a warrior, says King David. I would be able to deal with that. I could handle that if it was a regular enemy who was going against me. It's not like it's a person who is my sworn, enemy who's going against me and trying to make themselves bigger than me. Because then I would know how to hide from them. I know how to deal with war. I know how to deal with surrounding countries who are sworn to destroy my country. David Melch is a warrior. He knows, and he saved us. He's done many wars. He did many wars, and he was victorious in all of the wars. So he's saying it's not like I'm used to this kind of combat. This type of oops, sorry. No, don't go away. This type of a challenge I'm not used to. I'm used to regular goyim who are trying to kill me. I know how to kill them. But this is not like that because it's not regular enemies. You're a great, he's talking to the rabbi who was the 2 rabbis who were pushing his own son to rebel against him. He's talking to Achitophel and he's saying, you're a great person. You're a person that I valued. You're a person that you're my own level. Alufi, umiyudai. Your aluf is that you're a guide of me. You're like a rabbi of me. And miyudai, we know each other. We're friends. He's saying this to Achitophel. He's saying, I could handle any kind of a battle, but this is breaking my heart. Because what are you doing? You're instigating my son against me. You know how many parents I've spoken to who tell me the following story, and it's a very painful story. They say that their children don't speak to them, or their children speak to them minimally, or they are very cold to them. They're adult children. And it turns out, in so many cases, an adult, listen, none of us are perfect parents. We all make mistakes. But sometimes a person, a child, will go to therapy. And if they go to an unscrupulous, irreligious, not God-fearing therapist, then the therapist will oftentimes tell the child, or tell this, you could have an adult child, your mother is this way, your father is that way, and they blame the parents. And the child who's in therapy believes the therapist. Sometimes the therapist, in order to curry favor with their client, will blame everyone but the client. And they'll say it was your mother who was this way, and your father who messed you up. And the children, even adult children, begin to distance themselves from their parents because of the advice and the misadvice and the improper guidance of unqualified and unrighteous therapists. Now, because I've seen this so much, and now kids come to me to talk all the time, because I teach young people, like all you guys, you're all young people. So, and they tell me my mother's this, my father's this, and I always, my mahalach is, first of all, no blame. Nobody blames anybody, no blame. And, make peace at all costs with your parents. Unless the parent is in jail because they took a knife and they tried to stab you. But other than that, all of the other stuff that goes on between parents and children, that children then later on, as they grow older, they begin to, it doesn't mean that the parents is right, but it does mean that the child has the right to disconnect from the parents. And that has to be addressed. Now here, David HaMelech is accusing Achitophel of doing exactly that. He said, I had this son, and Avshalom is a good boy. He's a righteous, he's a tzaddik, he's a Yerushalayim. You put it into his head that I am not a good king. You put into his head that I, David, am not righteous. I don't serve Hashem properly. You said all kinds of lashon hara about me to my son, and he believed you. Why? Because you're a very special person. You're a enosh. You're a high level person. Ke'erki. You're in my social sphere. Alufi. You were my teacher. Miyudai. You're my friend. So my son believed you. How could you do that? How could you ruin so many lives? Says David HaMelech to Achitophel in this parak, because you know that if a therapist misguides a child to disconnect from their parents, so the parents are suffering and the child is suffering. I'm talking about adult children. It doesn't usually happen to young children because young children are under the auspices of their parents, except maybe in America, which is the absolute lowest level place right now in terms of what they're doing between parents and children. But it ruins the life of the child because the child needs to respect the parents, and the child needs to accept also that they themselves, that they're not perfect, the parents are not perfect, nobody's perfect in this world. So he's screaming out to Achitophel, to this man, how could you do that? And that's why also, whenever you're doing any kind of counseling, because all of us do counseling, whether it's official or whether it's unofficial, the main thing is to try to make shalom, to try to make peace, to try to help people to get along. The disconnection is the absolute final last step, and only when the person is chas v'shalom in the worst place. But trying to make peace, how could you do that? Asher yachtav namtig sod, and not just that. He's saying to Achitophel, but we learn together the deepest secrets of the Torah. We went to daven and to learn in the Beis Medrash and to daven in the Beis Knesset with such inspiration together. We had such a spiritual bond. David is speaking to this man Achitophel, who went and rebelled against him and disclosed all of his secrets and spoke lashon hara about him. And he's saying, how could you do that? Now, we told you that there were several people in Jewish history who were actually very scholarly in Judaism, but they ended up doing very, very bad things. And that's, the Gemara says, it's because their learning of Torah at the root was for the wrong reasons. We're learning Torah. We're trying to learn Torah at our roots. What's the bottom line of why you learn Torah? because you want to know the will of God. You want to know, it's not just because Torah learning is pleasant. You know, it's not always so easy when you learn a new law. Let's say you learn a new halacha, and it's hard for you to do that. Does that mean you stop going to shiurim? No, because you really would like to know. You really want to know what's the will of God. What does Hashem want me to do in this world? That's why we learn Torah. Not just that, but the Torah is Hashem. It's hard for me to explain this to you, but the Torah is actually, when the Tanya says that when a person learns Torah, it's the closest that we can get to Hashem. It's like we're touching his garment. That's how the Tanya talks about it. It's like if you see the king, and I'm not talking about your king, I'm talking about the real king. If we see Melech HaMashiach, or you see a big tzaddik, the tzaddikim, the Yanuka, he's such a tzaddik, and people just want to touch him. They just want to touch him, because what happens when you touch him? Like, what is that? We don't pray to him. We don't pray to tzaddikim, but people love tzaddikim so much, and if you touch them, it's like, what are you touching? You're touching their garment, but it's a level of closeness. They're holy, and you touch something that's touching them. So the Tanya says, when you learn Torah, which is what we do every single week, and I'm so proud of you ladies. We've been learning together for years. Every Thursday, you get up in the morning, you get yourself together early in the morning. Okay, here in Eretz Yisrael, it's the middle of the day, so the Eretz Yisrael next. For us in Eretz Yisrael, it's harder because we're already Thursday afternoon. We start cooking, and we're watching all of you making your challahs and all of your things, and it gets always me nervous, like, because I'm not in the kitchen, I'm by the computer. But you realize what it means to learn Torah day in and week in and week out. So you realize what a level of holiness you're on, even whatever your private life is. Every week you commit to learning, and you know what? It's not always so pleasant or easy or entertaining, but the reason you want to do it is because you want to connect to God, to the Ratzon of Hashem, to what is God saying to me through the words of King David. But sometimes people learn Torah for the wrong reasons at the root, meaning their real motivation is, I want to be a famous rabbi. I want to have a shul, and I see how the rabbi of my shul has so much control over so many people. I want that control. I want the fame. You know, if that's the reason why a person's learning, then it's corrupt. And then eventually it's going to catch up, and there's going to be a breakaway. That's what happens to Achitophel. Now, David HaMelech, our precious, beloved David HaMelech, is saying to us, you have to keep your eyes open for other people like that in your generation. People who appear to be so righteous, appear to be so religious, but there's something there that's not right. And don't be afraid to call that out and to keep your eyes open, because it happens. Not just that, but how horrible does a person feel when they're betrayed? Betrayal is probably one of the worst emotions a human being could feel. That you trust somebody with your secrets, you trust somebody with your spiritual life, and then they go and talk about it in a very glib way to somebody else. Like, oh yeah, I know that person. Yeah, she tries to daven a lot. She told me how much she davens. But yeah. When people betray your spiritual confidences, it's heartbreaking. It's crazy. That's what happened to David HaMelech, and he's helping us as the world progresses, and we have the worst and worst situations here. You know that the Mishnah Pirkei Avos, we're up to Pirkei Avos now, right? Pirkei Avos says, don't get close to the government, because they know how to be so charming, and they know how to, attract you, but they're just going to use you. I mean, in other words, don't become friendly don't think that a politician or a government official is going to help you in the long run. Don't become friends with them, because they just use you. And it's not just politicians. People of power, you have to be very cautious. This is what David HaMelech is telling us. And the Mishnah says, you have to see the reasons of people. Why do people want to be who they want to be? For example, David HaMelech didn't sleep. He never slept because he was helping people day and night. You have people in the world They devote their life to Klal Yisrael. They don't get paid a lot, and they have to shmai around to get their, make things work for them. But they're devoted to Klal Yisrael. Those people in the roots want to be righteous and want to help. But people in their roots who are interested in other people's opinions of them, okay, so now David Melch gave a big cry, Pasuk Yudalid and Tetvav. He's saying, how could you do this to me? We were so close, and we were so spiritually close. Okay, now David Melch goes back to talking to Hashem and says, Yashima Basalemo Hashem, I have to say that these people are not deserving to live. Yadu She'ol Chaim. Their life is hell right now, and they're causing other people to have a life like that. Kiraot Meguram B'Kirbam. Their Meguram is bad, and their Kirbam is bad. The Meguram is the Megurim, the place that they live. Their surroundings are corrupt, and their insides are corrupt. And that must have been very hard for King David to say, because David HaMelech loved Jews. How do I know he loved Jews? Because Chazal tell us that he was the neshama of all the Jewish people. That's what a real king is. A real king is the container of the neshama of all Jews. And he loved all Jews. So it must have been very hard for him to see these big Jews. When I say big, I mean influential and powerful and popular and scholarly and ostensibly religious. It was hard for him to see these kinds of Jews fall and fail. But he also knew that as king, he knew this, that his obligation is to protect the whole people. And so he said, these people do not deserve to live because they're creating a revolution. They're creating a rebellion that's not based on merit. It's not based on anything real. It's based on their desire for power, their desire for kavod, their desire for celebrity, their desire for popularity. That's what they're going to ruin the entire nation just because they're egotistical. That's what he's saying. And they don't deserve to live. And that must have been very hard for him to say, but he said it. I'll say it again. Yashima vescha alemo. Those people who caused this entire breakup who tried to make the breakup of the Jewish people, they don't deserve to live. Mavet means death. Yardu She'ol Chaim, they should go into She'ol alive, because they're already in She'ol. She'ol means hell. They should go down to the bottom. They should suffer. That's what he's saying. They should go to descend to the grave alive, because their surroundings, they're around them, and their insides are corrupt and evil. If it was just the surroundings, that they were brought up in a corrupt neighborhood, okay, there's hope for them. But because they internalized, they reinforced again and again their desires for kavod, for power, and they're corrupt inside. But what? Ani Elokim Ekra. So now David HaMelech is letting go. He's saying, okay, I said what I had to say. I got it off my chest. Now, I'm going to call out to God. Hashem, now you're in charge. I said what happened. I called out to you. Hashem Yoshieni. Hashem is going to help me. That's all. I let go, and Hashem is going to help me. I let go, Hashem will help me. I give it all to you, Hashem. And whatever you do, I accept. Now you know that David HaMelech had to run away from his own house. This parak is connected to parak Gimel, which we learned, when he had to run away from his palace and he ran into the desert and he didn't want to, he had to be alone. And how did he do that? How did he survive the pain of all of these things? So it's not like he sat around and said, okay, Hashem, make me a miracle. No, he went and he did his ishtadlus and he ran away. But he said, but I'm davening, and Hashem, you're going to help me. I know you're going to help me. Why? Because Erev, Avoker v'Tzarayim, because nighttime and morning time and afternoon time, Asicha, I talk to you, Hashem. Ve'emeh, and I kvetch to you, Hashem. Vayishma koli, and you listen to me. Erev Avoker Tzarayim is like Mariv, Shachris, Mincha. Right? That's the 3 prayers of every single day. The nighttime, the day begins at night. Vayhi Erev, Vayhi Voker. There's night and there's day, right? So the first, when the Shabbos come in, what's the first prayer of Shabbos? Mariv. Okay, you might say Kabbalat Shabbat, but Kabbalat Shabbat is like an introduction to Mariv. See, because Shabbos is so holy that we need to get into it. So we do a Kabbalat Shabbat, we sing a whole bunch of songs so that we inspire ourselves to daven Mariv properly. You know that I'm privileged to daven whenever I can by the Yanuka. And I really hope I could take you ladies to his davening when you come. And he comes for Shabbos to Yerushalayim, and you'll come to Shabbos also, and you'll stay in a hotel more close by, and you'll walk over. So they daven the nusach of the Edot HaMizrach. Edot HaMizrach is the Sephardi, not nusach Sfard of the Hasidim, but Sephardi, like the Sephardim. So the first time I ever davened Kabbalah Shabbos with him, I was so surprised because we start with what? The Chuna Ranana. And we say 6 chapters of Tehillim, paralleling the 6 days of the week. And then we get to Lechadodi. Guess what? They don't do that. They just sing Lechadodi. Kabbalah Shabbat by the Sfardim is Lechadodi. And then they say the Parak for Shabbos, and for the Mizmor for Shabbos, and the Mizmor Hashem Malach, Geus Lavesh, right? They said the end, and that's a Kabbalah Shabbos. And it's so funny, it's so interesting because, you know, we turn around for Boi B'Shalom, they turn around for the whole Lechadodi, they turned around. They turn around, so the whole Lechadodi, I was like, what's going on here? And you know that in general, when the men are davening and the women are to the side, so you don't see the men davening, we don't look at the men davening. But they're all turned around, and the Rav was also turned around. So you could see him davening because he's facing us. So like, you know, the ladies turned around, but they're looking like over their shoulder to watch to see how the tzaddikim pray. It's so special. I remember years and years ago, I went once to I don't know, I was in high school. And I went to a kenis at Moshe Feinstein. There was like a whole day, it's well the Gzolim. And I forgot what it was for, but we were first going to daven mincha, and then there was whatever the program was, and I don't remember what it was, but I remember thinking, I want to daven mincha. I was like 16, I guess. I want to daven mincha with this giant congregation, but I want to watch how Moshe Feinstein davens mincha. So, and the ladies were upstairs, and you could see. So I was davening mincha, but watching him, and like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what Hashem wanted for me. Like, it's so important to watch tzaddikim. Okay, but his back was to me, and he was a tiny man. I don't know if you know Moshe Feinstein. I was privileged to see him, to go to his house twice. He was he was physically, and he was a giant, but physically Hashem gave him a small frame. His wife was a head taller than
4'10".
That's how big he was, 4'10"?
He was 4'10".
Wow. And the rabbi
He had very small feet and very wide feet.
Really? How do
He
you
couldn't get shoes. I know, because the person who used to take him to go and get shoes was my very best friend's brother. He was in yeshiva, and her other brother was the Baal Korah for Reb Moshe Rebbetzin Rochel all his life to the last day.
Wow.
And they lived still on the Lower East Side. I was just there, and we were discussing it. We were saying how wonderful it was that a person that was such a great stature was so tiny.
Okay, that's great. That's great. 4'10", wow. His wife, Rebbetzin Simma, she was a beautiful, wonderful person. She was mamish, I had taller than him.
Yeah.
And it was so sweet to see them together.
And he would give her the greatest covet. He went home from this boy took him to get shoes, and he took a black pair and a brown pair, and he said to his Rebbetzin, He said, "Du glachst? Do you like it?" So zu ja, sehr schein. So then he said to her, "Wo soll ich nehmen, the schwarze or the braune?" So she said, "Wo soll man nicht nehmen beide? Why shouldn't we take both? It's very hard to find your feet." He had to go out all the way in the Long Island, past all the cemeteries, if you know what I mean. And he had to go to some factory, and he went once a year to buy a pair of shoes.
Wow.
Just goes to show you what kavod he gave to his Rebbetzin. So the boy learned how to treat his wife.
Beautiful, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Wow. Okay. So I'm just remembering when I went to the Lower East Side to their apartment twice. And the second time I went, I couldn't believe how they were very humble people. The whole world was in their house. They were so humble. And the kitchen, I was sitting with the Rebbetzin in the kitchen, so it was my turn. And the sink was leaking, drip, drip, drip. And I remember thinking, how could it be that the Gadol Hador of the entire universe, who's keeping the world alive by his Torah, has a drip in his sink? It was like cognitive dissonance. I couldn't figure it out. And Ani Elokim Ekrav Hashem Yoshieni. David Melch says, I'm going to call out to God, and he uses the name Elokim, which is Hashem of justice. And Vashem, but Yud Kevav Kehavaya Yoshieni. I call out to God for justice for the other people. And when Hashem relates to me, he relates to me with love. The name of Hashem with justice, the name of Hashem with love. Justice for the people who need to be put in the right place, and love for us. And I call out to Hashem night, morning, and day. Mariv, Shachris, Mincha. Asich, I talk to Hashem. And Mem means I cry to Hashem, I moan, I groan to Hashem, I kvetch to Hashem. Vayishma koli, and he hears me, he listens to me. I told you this many, many times, I'll say it to you again, because I want to encourage you to do this. In my siddur, I write myself little notes. And I don't write like sticky notes. I write on the margins. And I wrote to myself a note just to encourage myself. I was listening once to a shiur, and the Rav said, Hashem loves every word of tefillah that comes out of your mouth is like a precious diamond to Hashem. Hashem loves it. He adores every word of tefillah. So I wrote that into myself, on the margin of one of the pages of my siddur, to remind myself Hashem wants you to daven, and he loves the words, whether you say it with kavanah or not, when you say it with understanding or not. Every word Hashem loves. I told my class yesterday, and I'll tell you, maybe I hope Hashem will laugh again. Yesterday, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? It was probably 2 days ago. I had a very busy day, and I left davening mincha for the last minute, and then I got company. And so I had a daven mincha mamish by the shkia. Like just, right? They left mamish 10 minutes before shkia, and I ran to the daven mincha, and I didn't pay attention so much to the tefillah because my head was in a million different places, and I wasn't really with so much kavanah. And at the end, before I stepped back, also Shalom Roma, before I stepped back, I looked up at the sky and said, Hashem, I really love you. I really love you. And I'm so grateful to you. And I didn't daven such a good mincha, but I love you. I love you. And then I said, also Shalom Roma. Then I stepped back, and that was my mincha. And I hope that was okay. So Hashem loves our words. He loves our words. Now, from here to the end of the parak is a section of Tehillim that is so important that Chabad put it into a song. They made it into a nigun, meaning they sing this at Farbrengens, and so we're not going to have time to. Maybe we'll stop now. Actually, we're not going to have time to go through the whole entire thing. And I don't know what the schedule is for next week. Next Thursday, I'm going to be in the airport. That's normally I'm going to be in your airport, whatever airport that is, to leaving. So I don't think we're going to have next Thursday. But maybe we'll have a Tehillim class when I'm there, and we'll finish this parak, or maybe I'll do another parak. So we're going to stop now, and at some point we're going to continue by Pada B'Shalom Nafshi. If you want to hear the nigun of that, you can go online and just type in Pada B'Shalom Nafshi, and you'll hear the way the Chabadnikim sing it. And so I want to personally invite you all to all the different activities that Rebbetzin Dov has planned. So she didn't send it to me yet. She just a little bit in outline, but I know that Monday morning, I think we start at 10, either 9 or 10. Shiurim. I don't know what else. And then in the afternoon, there's meetings. And Tuesday
morning.
What is it? And then
Tuesday evening.
Tuesday evening. When is that whole spa day?
Wednesday is the day. Wednesday is the day in Totteridge.
Whole day. And where is that?
In Totteridge is very posh, North London. If anybody needs help, they can contact me because I'm coming special. I'm coming on Sunday and leaving Wednesday night. But if anyone wants details, I'll help them along. So if they want to come from Manchester or London people, Joanne will help.
So, Nomi, I hope I get to meet you. Sharon, I hope I get to meet you. Dahlia, I have to meet you. And Pauline, I must meet you. And Miriam, I must meet you. You have to come. And Mrs. Morris, I don't know where you live. I think she's in South Africa, no? Yeah?
A bit far.
Where?
Maybe it's a bit far in South
Yeah.
Africa.
And Sarah, I want to meet you. And Sheila, I want to meet you. And whoever else is here that I don't see names of, I want to come and meet you in person. It's a whole different, I'll tell you a funny story. I'm also short. When Miriam was saying stories about Moshe, so he was 4'10", that was even, I'm also petite and short. So I once had a funny thing that happened to me. I think I told you this just a few weeks ago even. I was once teaching in a school where they had, but it was like a hybrid class. They had in class. And then I also taught on the computer. They had set up a computer and it was also being recorded and sent out. So it was a large class and then some lady walked in and I didn't know who she was, but she sat in the back and I was teaching. And all of a sudden she just got up in the middle of class and she came to the front and she said, I have to give you a hug in the middle of class. I said, okay. She said, I've been watching you. She lives in South America or she lives someplace very far. I've been watching the class and you're so tiny, she said. That was such a funny thing. She said, I can't believe how little you are. I have to just give you a hug. Anyway, Be'ezrat Hashem, we get a chance to meet each other. Thank you to Rebbetzin Dov for meeting me and for arranging this whole thing. For Rebecca, 1 second, sweetie, I'm just finishing up a class. I must thank Rebbetzin Dov for arranging this and for nudging me for years already to come and really for all that she does for your community. She's not even on to hear this, but she's an amazing, amazing person and you're incredibly lucky to have her. And I'm grateful that I'm going to be coming and I hope just again, daven for me that I have strength to do everything that I have to do and that whatever, Be'ezrat Hashem. Okay, good Shabbos. Good Shabbos.
And we've organized beautiful weather for you, Rebbetzin. Look at that.
Oh, tell me about the weather. What's it like there?
It's going to be warm. I think we're in our 20s next week. That's warm for London.
I was going to say, what's warm for you? 20s?
Yeah.
Okay, I can tolerate that. The last time I was in England, I was in London once. I taught about 6, 7, 8 years ago. I don't remember when. And it was in July, I think. And also June, July. And the lady said, who organized it, she said, they never had such nice weather. I said, Hashem is so good to me because I don't like cold. I only like warm foods, warm weather, warm environment, warm people. I don't like cold. So I hope, Ezrat Hashem, that I'll bring a winter coat, but I hope I won't have to use it. Good Shabbos. I'm coming right now, Rebecca. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Thank you.
Shabbos.
Shabbos, looking forward.